Hey there, folks. Welcome to today's episode of the Strategy and Leadership Podcast. My guest today is David Ewing, who is the CEO at Motive. He is also the president at EO Austin, in Austin, I should say. David, how's it going today?
I can't complain. It's a good day so far, Anthony.
I love it. Why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about who you are, what you do? You've been driving Motive forward for the past, 20 years or so. Tell us a little bit about you.
Sure. So I started my company with not the most auspicious of beginnings. I basically was caught in the dot-com nuclear winter and needed to figure out what I was going to do. But from that very humble beginning, I decided that what I really wanted to create was a company where I could help companies with their customer experience, because that to me is the place where strategy meets execution. I had come from a world of strategy where we had given people lots of really great advice, but it was not a very satisfying career path. And I'd also been on the role of doing a lot of marketing execution where I really didn't have a say in the creative or in how things went together. But to me, customer experience was this magic place where everything synthesized into one thing that really turns people into diehard advocates for a company, or if the customer experience is bad, their worst antagonists. So I realized that that was kind of a really fun place for me to begin. And so what Motive, my company, became was just all things that could make customer experience systemic, repeatable, and positive whenever possible.
Cool. I love that. For those of you that listen to the show, you might know that I never have the same question other than who are you? And so, David, you're in for a question that I haven't exactly asked anybody before. So behind you, it looks like there's a lot of, call it political, military, not paraphernalia, but artistic stuff. I see a pick cover of Life. I see some sort of thing. And so my question is, what is your approach to strategy and who inspires your strategic thinking and how you view strategy?
Yeah, so the stuff behind me is mostly gifs and pictures and other things. I try to avoid contemporary politics as much as possible. But yeah, to me, strategy is about doing more with less. That's really what it comes down to, is that a good strategy can turn the tide, because in a situation that seems unwinnable under conventional thinking, whether that be in business or anything else, suddenly becomes winnable. And how do you do that? Well, there is, of course, the art of strategy as well as the analytical side of it. But to me, if you can turn the tide and do more with less, you have a good strategy. And if you can't, you don't.
That's fair. So I believe that it's best to incorporate a strength-based approach to strategy. You are strong in your strengths, you are weak in your weaknesses. And so assuming that customer experience is a strength of yours, why would you encourage our listeners to consider customer experience or successful customer experience as being the what you can do, get the most out of with least, if you understand what I mean by that?
Absolutely. Yeah. To me, why does customer experience, align with strategy, and what does it do that you couldn't do otherwise, or how do you do more with less? It really comes down to this, is that customer experience, whether the customer is having a good and positive customer experience or a negative one, it's about changing their attitude. And if you can change their attitude, you can change their behavior. Let me give you a classic example. It's one that I just find it's easy for everybody to understand. Chewy.com did analysis and realizes that if they've been selling someone elderly dog food for a while and suddenly the orders stop coming in, what do you think that tells you?
Hmm.
The dog is gone, right? It is not a great experience for the customer. So, but Chewy has the data, they know that it's there. And what they do is they send the owner a kind bereavement package with some flowers and just an apology. And on the one hand, if you're thinking about it from a shrewd, just perspective, you're like, why would I do that? This person isn't going to be buying dog food from me anymore. But guess what that does? It changes their attitude towards Chewy, and probably chances are people who've had a dog are going to have another dog one day. And where do you think they're going to buy their dog food? Right? Chewy. So I don't know what that costs them, but I gotta imagine it's less than probably two orders, the margin on two orders of dog food. So it probably makes itself back 100 times over. And so, when you can do that, you really change customer experience. Now, does Chewy do that because they have incredibly sensitive people who are just that thoughtful and are paying attention to the orders every day? No, it's a system. They have a complete process. They mine the data. They have a trigger. They run the play, and they do this. But does it change the efficacy of what happens or the sincerity behind the overall thought? No, of course not. It's a wonderful thing. And I have given countless customer journey seminars. And when I go into a seminar and talk to people and I say, hey, give me an example of a time you had great customer experience, inevitably somebody tells that story. And it's always with tears and it's always with joy. And you can just feel from the silence of the room, everybody says, man, I'm buying from Chewy, and so that to me is great customer experience. That if you can find those moments with your customers, that's what makes a customer happen for life. And then the dollars and cents on this all come down to one metric, which is customer lifetime value. If a customer can stick with you, if they find excuses and reasons to buy from you over and over again, then your business is going to do okay. And from a strategy standpoint, you are absolutely going to do more with less.
Yeah, no, I love that. And to make just like what I think you meant, but might not have said like fully is they care. The technology and data supports them caring at scale. And I think that's one of the hardest parts for a small business, because especially the ones that like really want to do well, but as you're inundated with fires and other things, like being able to be equipped with that and then automating the caring so that not only are you doing the good thing, but you're doing it consistently, is I think really the key to doing it at scale, if I've understood what you meant.
I think you said that incredibly well, Anthony. And it reminds me of another story because yes, a big company like that has very sophisticated systems, data, processes, people, technology, all that stuff. How do you do that in a small manner? Well, let me give you a hack that a mentor of mine had. A mentor of mine told me that, that he'd had this wonderful marriage and it had been great for years. But one of the keys to his marriage was that 10 years earlier, he realized that if he wrote 12 letters at the start of the year, and they're just simple love letters to his wife, and just once a month on a random day, he just drops it in the mail. It goes out to the post office. It comes back. She gets the letter in the mail, and she loves it. And it's a system. It doesn't mean he doesn't care about her. In fact, he cares about her a lot. In fact, I've always wanted to emulate that. And to truth be told, I've never done the 12 letters. But it works for him, and it was a great system. And you know how much technology that needed? It needed, 12 note cards and 12 stamps, and away you go. So you can scale a system down and up, and it's possible, I think, for any business who's inspired and wants to be creative to create a small, repeatable system, so that it's not an ad hoc effort to be wonderful in customer experience, but it's repeatable.
Absolutely. So there's like delivering the value proposition, the piece around the lifetime value, because it'll, as a business, and whether you're a small or large business, it's always cheaper to keep a customer than get a new one. There's the Gary V story of when he sent the guy the Jay Cutler jersey, and then one of his friends, bought $6,000 worth of wine. And so like there's the knock-on effect of all of those things. But at the end of the day, it's being aware of like what does your customer want, and then ensuring that you do that repeatably. And then I believe that there are, I don't want to use it horror stories, but the stories when it's done poorly, where you say like insert name, hope you're having a great insert holiday, and so being mindful of those things. Tell me about, so let's say our listeners want to improve that side of their business. They want to improve the customer experience. What are some, and you talked about, the ability to do it. It doesn't need to be done huge. It can be done small. But let's say a leadership team or a marketing team or an ops team or HR team wants to begin to incorporate these things. What are the first, one or two steps that they need to consider to get the ball rolling on improving their their experience?
Yeah, I think I can lay this on up pretty quickly. So the underlying principle of all this is that your customers are always going to have strong emotions. Now, they can be very strong positive or strong negative, but for you to capture and bind yourself to your customer, you've got to first identify when those strong emotions are going to occur. Now, typically we call those the moments that matter. And you could take any business, right? And the nice thing is that when you're smaller, this is actually easier than when you're bigger. When you're smaller, you can take an individual customer that you know, and you can play back the last 6 months in your mind, right? You and your executive team can say, how did it go with us in November? What did we do with them? Oh yeah, and then this is what happened in December, and then they were really happy, but then something happened in January. And you take one customer and maybe chart the last 6 months and say, where were the high highs for this customer? Where were the low lows? And if you don't even know, then just pick up the phone and ask them. But one way or another, chart out and figure out where those high highs and low lows were. And then do that for 2 or 3 more customers, maximum 3. What you'll find is that you'll see a pattern. You'll see a moment where either you consistently have a moment where the customer is full of euphoria and a high, or there is a moment where the customer is extraordinarily frustrated and they're having a low. Maybe it's your fault. Maybe it's not your fault. Maybe it's in your control. Maybe it's not in your control. But no matter what, you can take those moments that matter and you can create that as a trigger to do something thoughtful for the customer right there, right? Either if it's in a moment of euphoria, it's a great time to introduce that complimentary service that'll double down that euphoria, right? If it's a moment of incredible frustration, especially if it's not your fault, what can you do to just empathize with them a little bit and bring them back to normal? There are always ways to do that, and they don't cost very much, and that's the key. If you put in those couple of steps and then write down a simple process, you've got yourself the beginnings of a way to bond with your customers at those pivotal moments of heightened emotion.
Yeah, absolutely. Right now, while we record this, we're currently in basketball, hockey playoffs. So, you can just set it to Amazon to drop ship a box of tissues when their team gets eliminated. But okay, so we talked about this as at a small scale. I know you partner with Oracle, or at least I believe you partner with Oracle, just kind of on your back end. Let's say a larger organization wants to really dig into this as an organization. What are the kind of top 2-3 things that you'd have them consider so they could do this at an enterprise level?
Yeah. So now we're talking about scalability. And I think that, funny enough, the best programs that I have put together have come from kind of like a small microcosm, an atomic unit that we were able to then roll out and scale. When you have the resources of a larger company, what you begin to realize is that things that you would have done manually as a smaller business, you are now just doing with automation. So perfect example, cross-selling is a great thing. And for cross-selling, just in case people don't know, it is, hey, if you really like my peanut butter, you should try my jelly. It's a complementary product. They go together, and you could cross-sell. And there's so many untapped opportunities for companies, even at large scale, to cross-sell. And the interesting thing is that very rarely do the incentives line up in some companies to get cross-sell done correctly. But cross-sell is a great example. So the question is, how do you do that effectively? And I have found that when you have those peak moments of euphoria, those moments of delivery, those moments of launch, if it's a review, there's so many different triggers where the customer is signaling to you, I am happy with you. And that is the moment to cross-sell. And so, doing that with an automated trigger through like marketing automation or digital marketing or some other form, that's really kind of the first step to making something like that happen. And that's really where I see the big benefits come in when you want to take advantage of customer experience and really monetize it to make sure that customer lifetime value goes up.
Cool. I like that. I just had an experience at a, boutique hotel, which I thought was fascinating. Never happened before. And I stay in, 40, 50 nights a year in a hotel. It was the Malcolm Hotel in Canmore. And the day before I was to check out, I got an email saying, do you want to extend your stay? We will give you either 10% off the best rate that we have or your current rate, whatever is cheaper. Like, extend your trip. And I just thought that was such an smart technique, and I'd never seen it before, because you have the customer like literally in the room being like, "Ooh, I'm having such a great time," and they can, like, if it's a 2-night stay, they turn it into 3. That's a 50% bump in revenue. It's done through automation. You turn it off when it's like peak time, but if you're not full, it's a great way to upsell while people are like right in it. Can you share, just as we finish up, one more example of something like that you'd seen like really great results on?
Well, it's not exactly like what you're talking about, but it's similar. I had this customer once who had a call center, and They had implemented technology with someone else and it had not gone well. And the call time in the call center shot up to 6.5 minutes. And this was a call center that was talking to high-end architects and designers. And so these designers and architects would call in, they needed product, they needed a certain design, it had to be just so. And when we started listening to the phone calls, what we started hearing was most of the call, most of the 5.5 or 6 minutes of call was the agent apologizing, saying, hold on a second, I'm waiting for my system to load. And then there'd be this awkward pause. And it was just, and that you could just feel the pressure and the urgency of these very impatient people just building and building. And it was like, oh gosh, what a nightmare it would be to be one of these agents all day. So we just set up ourselves a goal to just say we have got to lower this call time from 6 minutes. We have got to drop it. We've got to this could be done in 2 minutes if it was done efficiently. And so we put in all the systems in place, right? We got everything dialed in, everything ready to go. And we do all the training with all of the agents, test all the systems, flip the switch, go live. And, we're there for the day and call time stays at 6 minutes. And we're saying, we're listening and it's not, there's a lot more chatter going on, but there's and they're not waiting on systems anymore. Systems are efficient, but the calls are still 6 minutes. And, our sponsor goes, hey, why don't you guys head home? I think it's okay. We'll see how things go. I'm sure it'll drop as everybody gets used to the new technology. I call 30 days later, right? Hey, Andy, how's that call time? And he says, it's still 6 minutes, but he's not upset at all. And I just kind of stunned. He says, just give me a call another 30 days. And so I am now panicking, right? I am like, oh my gosh, what can I do for my customer? And so the thing is he says, yeah, call me back. So I call him in 30 more days. And I say, Andy, how is that call time? He says, it's still 6 minutes. And I said, Andy, my gosh, I am terribly sorry. Like, I don't know how to overcome this. And he says, David, will you just relax? And I said, why? He said, well, here's the thing. As you know, they're not sitting there apologizing about their systems being down. Instead, they're chatting for 6 minutes about all the different options, and they're providing suggestions, and they're talking to these designers about, yes, here's the thing that you want, here's the price, but here's 3 other things, and one of them's on sale, or whatever you want to do. He said, the amount of orders that we have received has tripled per minute. And this is the best investment we have ever put into any of our systems ever. And I was just shocked. And it taught me so many lessons, because one, don't be so sure of what you want that you wouldn't take something better was the first lesson. And then, for me, as my own customer experience, I look back and go, my goodness, that could have turned out so much worse than it did. I mean, it turned out to be this wonderful success story, but how did I treat my customer as they were going through that? It was a great epiphany and a lesson for me. But then the third thing is that, knowing that we had the highest ROI project in the history of their company, it was a great moment to introduce the next project, so that was also the way it worked. So it was a lot of lessons for me early in my career, and it was really, really a wonderful experience.
No, I love that. I think what goes to show is that, really having the right goals, the right targets. And remember, like, yes, it could have been, hey, make the call shorter. Why?
Yeah.
Because it's ultimately about the customer experience. Instead of 2 minutes sitting awkwardly while I say, let me share my screen, you get 2 minutes to add value. I would have even said, hey, the calls are longer now, and our customer satisfaction has never been better. So it's funny how sometimes you work things and they move in the right direction or wrong direction. I'm sure we could talk for a really, really long time, but David, where can people learn more about you? They can learn more about your work. They can learn more about your thought leadership, and where can they connect with you if they want to chat some more?
Yeah. So the number one way to reach me is at davidgewing.com. That is my site where I put all of my blog articles. You can sign up for my newsletter, The Spark, where I talk about and send different examples of great customer experience and leadership. And so that's the best way to do it. The other way to get me is on LinkedIn. So always happy to take a connection request. And it's LinkedIn/David G. Ewing. So thank you.
Awesome. David, thanks for the chat today. It was very fun, very eye-opening, and now I'm going to be on the lookout for other opportunities to improve my customer experience.
Sounds great, Anthony. Thank you.
Folks, my guest today, David Ewing, who is the CEO at Motive. One of the things that I'm, just reflecting on is in a world where it gets harder and harder, not only to just be successful in business, to stand out, but looking at, hey, what is that path of least resistance? How can you support your existing customers? And I think at the heart of it is curiosity. What are the things, what are those moments, high or low, within our customers' lives, where we can, as a service provider, partner, like client, add value to them. You have to be really curious, you have to be interested, and sometimes you have to be willing to accept not the result you thought, but the result that's going to make a difference for them. And being heart-centered at the heart of it is most important. So David, thanks again for chatting with me today. I really appreciate it, folks. I hope you take the opportunity to look for ways to innovate your customer experience, and be sure to consider motive as you do that. Once again, this has been the Strategy and Leadership Podcast. My name is Anthony Taylor. I appreciate you. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't. Give us a rating if you like it, and connect with all of our listeners, because they're awesome people, David included. So thanks again. I'll see you next time.